Ooh, you rocking a yeast infection?
Well, that's the last thing anyone needs in the apocalypse. Hello, Internet, I'm Ren, and today I want to talk about Season 2, Episode 4 of The Last of Us, Day 1. This was another solid episode that gives us a bit of world building and a nice mix of action and quiet moments to take it all in. It's a fun exploration of post-apocalypse Seattle, or at least the show's interpretation of it. And there's some wonderful character building for Ellie and Dina. But I can't say much more without spoilers, so let's get into it. This is going to be another low-key, unscripted review, so it's just me, my notes, and my hyperfixation while we break down this episode. And of course, as previously stated, this video will have spoilers for The Last of Us TV series up to this point, so you have been warned. The episode starts with a flashback to the Seattle quarantine zone in 2018, where a bunch of dirtbag FEDRA soldiers are making fun of the local residents, which they refer to as voters.
Well, you can't handle 3 voters? I caught them out here disseminating. And he goes, what? You perverts are out here jerking off?
And Josh Peck gives us a particularly nasty example of their cruelty.
And the guy decides to open his mouth and goes, well, actually, disseminate means you were slammed your head against the wall.
An older soldier who seems to be in charge is not impressed.
The citizens, why do you call them voters?
Who cares?
Because we took away their rights.
And he decides he's going to go out and talk to a bunch of residents that are standing around the vehicle.
Keep it running. Copy. I'm gonna go talk to them. Alone.
And he brings one young soldier with him.
You. Come with me. Learn something.
He hops out to chat while the rest wait.
Hey, Isaac.
Until he turns around and unpins a couple grenades and tosses them inside, locking the door on the remaining soldiers. And that's the end of Josh Peck's cameo in The Last of Us. He then asks the young soldier he spared to
make your choice.
And becomes a member of the Washington Liberation Front. Meanwhile, in the present day, Dina and Ellie search a rundown pharmacy for any remaining useful items. Other than some long-expired monostat, there isn't much.
Ooh, you rocking a yeast infection?
Not today, give me time.
Although Dina does find a mystery item. I'm gonna just spoil it now. It's a pregnancy test. And for related reasons, Dina seems a bit preoccupied.
All right, hit it. People to kill. Okay.
She and Ellie explore Seattle, particularly Cap Hill, where I actually used to live for quite some time. And they observe that the city's in pretty good shape considering that there were supposedly bombs dropped on it.
I don't understand. I thought they bombed here.
Yeah, I heard that too. Guess not this part.
And they notice the rainbow flags and a pride mural, but don't understand what they mean.
What's up with all the rainbows?
I don't know. Maybe they were all optimists.
So they refer to Seattle as
Happy, proud Rainbow Town.
which is kind of a fun interpretation on it. I don't hate it. Then they discover some long-dead FEDRA soldiers with an overgrown tank next to them. Ellie observes that all of the bodies seem to be wearing FEDRA gear, so she assumes there's some kind of infighting that happened here.
All these bodies are in FEDRA gear. Almost looks like they were fighting each other.
And I bet Isaac had something to do with it. She loudly investigates the tank and finds 3 charred bodies inside, which she compares to the Apollo astronauts,
What is it?
3 burnt skeletons, like Apollo 1.
which is a nice little reference to Ellie's love of space, which we explore more in the game, and we'll hopefully see some flashbacks exploring in this season as well. Then they spot a WLF outpost on top of a hill and plan a night attack since it would be unwise to approach during the day.
If you paint a sign big enough to be seen from miles away, that means you want people to know that you're there.
So we wait until dark and we head out on foot.
So they maneuver their horse into a record store to wait until nightfall. Ellie finds an unspoilt guitar still in its case, and she plays Take On Me by Aha.
Talking away, I don't know what I say.
And Dina comes in and listens
It's no better to be safe than sorry.
and gets a little bit emotional.
You've gotten pretty good.
Thanks.
And it's a really cute scene.
All those lessons from Joel.
He taught you well.
Although, put the guitar back in the case, like, there's a finite supply of guitars in the world at this point. Don't let one rot for no reason. What's the next emo scavenger gonna do? Then we check in with present-day Isaac, who is using some fancy pans
If you own Moviel, you use Moviel.
to torture a Seraphite for information on their next attack.
Where are the scars attacking next? Hold out your hand.
And they go back and forth,
You killed our children. You trained them to shoot at us. Because you almost killed them.
but Isaac shuts down the idea of this chicken and egg violence where they've both been fighting each other so long it's hard to remember who started it.
Because you broke the truce. Because you broke it because we broke it.
But the Seraphite won't talk.
I will burn every part of you until you tell me what I want to know!
And mercifully, Isaac puts him out of his misery. And the soldiers posted outside the door have a very specific reaction to it.
Scar got what he deserved. Fucking animal.
They've clearly completely dehumanized the Seraphites and so feel nothing when they're killed. And that tells us a lot about the WLF and why this conflict has escalated to the point that it has. Because it has definitely escalated to a rather shocking point. I am grateful the torture scene didn't go on for much longer, because watching it through one time was enough for me. I have fast-forwarded parts of it with pretty much every subsequent rewatch. I do not have a strong stomach for this stuff. At night, Dina and Ellie approach and scope out the outpost. And they make a sort of spoken-unspoken agreement that they're not going to restrict their use of deadly force just to the wolves that were present when Joel was killed.
And if we run into wolves at Warrington Jackson? Agreed.
But it's something of a non-issue once they get inside, because they find all of the wolves have already been brutally and violently killed. And the culprit seems to be the Seraphites, as implied by their symbol on the wall. They observe that the wolves use the same walkie-talkies they do, and so take one.
It's the same ones we use.
But then they have to hide because a group of wolves have showed up to investigate. They almost get away clean, but unfortunately, at the last moment, they're spotted and there's a scuffle. Dina and Ellie escape and crawl through a narrow passageway in the hopes of losing the wolves.
No, you can fit. They can't. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
And they find themselves in a transit tunnel. Presumably the light rail, since that's our main form of underground transit in Seattle. The wolves are in pursuit and use a bunch of flares to try and find them. Unfortunately, they trigger some cordyceps, resulting in a horde of infected showing up. And there's this really great tense scene where we first hear the zombies, where Dina starts trying to count out how many they are from the distinct sounds they're making, until it becomes clear it's more than she can count. The infected swarm in and eat the soldiers. As far as we can tell, none of them make it out. Ellie and Dina run through the train and manage to climb up through the roof. They get out into the main area of the station, but are stopped by an old turnstile, which they're barely able to get through. And while Dina's still partially trapped, Ellie fends off a zombie with her arm and gets bitten, and then Dina manages to get through. And I'm suspending my disbelief because in Seattle, none of our transit uses turnstiles. They're all on honor systems and we just have transit cops that check people's tickets sometimes, but we don't do the turnstile thing. And I've lived in Seattle and Washington a long time, but I even went back and made sure that in 2003 our light rail stations did not have turnstiles, and indeed they did not. But it was a pretty good scene, so I can't blame them for pretending that we did. Ellie and Dina make it out and they hide out in the Pinnacle Theater, a fictionalized version of the real Paramount Theater in Seattle. And it's pretty good. It was immediately recognizable to me and probably any other Seattleites. But Ellie is shocked when she turns around and finds Dina is pointing a gun at her.
Okay, it's not perfect, but if anyone tries to get in, I'll buy some. What are you doing?
And emotionally preparing herself to put her down.
Please don't make this any harder than it has to be. Wait, why did you do that? Why the fuck did you have to do that?
Ellie manages to convince her to wait.
I would die for you. I would, but that is not what just happened.
And explains that she's been bitten before and that she's immune.
I'm immune. I can't get infected.
And while Dina initially doesn't believe her, she manages to convince her to let Ellie go sleep in a chair across from her while they wait it out.
I'm gonna bandage my arm and I'm gonna go to sleep. You're gonna sit as far away from me as you want. If I turn, shoot me.
And of course, Ellie wakes up completely unchanged, and Dina is extremely relieved. She immediately tells Ellie that she's pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
And they hook up. And it's very unfortunate that presumably neither of them washed their hands because they might end up needing that monostat.
Ooh, you reckon a yeast infection?
Okay, give me time.
Afterwards, they talk about the baby, which of course is Jesse's.
We're together and we have a kid, and I don't even know if you want that. I want it with you.
And Dina explains that he's never really been the one for her.
I try to make things work with Jesse because I like him. I do. I think he's a really good guy, but he wasn't the one.
Basically, she's always been bi, and she tried to communicate that to her mother, who immediately had a very homophobic reaction.
When I was little, I told my mother I like boys and I like girls, and she said, no, you like boys.
And pretty much ever since, Dina has been steeped in comphet,
I got stuck.
which is compulsory heterosexuality. It's basically the idea that many queer people, especially lesbian and bisexual women, may take longer to discover their true identities or act on them because they believe they have no option other than to be heterosexual due to social pressures. So here we see that Dina always had stronger feelings for Ellie, and Ellie has always been the one for her, but she kept trying to make things work with Jesse because the idea that she needed to be with a man became so internalized for her. Ellie talks a little bit more about her immunity and shows Dina the currently healing bite and her old bite that she covered with a burn so that she could wear short sleeves again.
He said it was a burn. Most of it is.
Although honestly, I don't think that lie is actually necessary because listen, if you survived the bite, you can just lie and say that a human bit you in a fight or something. It happens. They're all subject to all kinds of violence. It's not like infected have a monopoly on biting. And because it's healed, I think people would jump to believing you that a non-infected was the source of the bite rather than assuming that you're the one person in their world that's immune, right? But it's fine. I digress. They talk a little bit more about the pregnancy. And Dina reveals that her fear of losing Ellie is what finally prompted her to act on her feelings and express herself.
Why now? I thought you were gone.
And I really like that as a means to propel Dina forward. Because, of course, even in the apocalypse, especially when you live a relatively safe life in Jackson like they do, it's easy to take for granted that someone will be there tomorrow for you to express your feelings to. But when she was confronted with the very real, immediate possibility of losing Ellie, and losing a future it seems like she didn't even really let herself admit she was imagining for the two of them.
And then all of a sudden, this future I was imagining wasn't gonna happen.
It finally propels her into action. And Ellie has the cutest reaction to the positive pregnancy tests, which we're also ignoring definitely wouldn't still work after nearly 30 years, but okay. Which is,
Holy shit, I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
Daddy Ellie! Oh my god! But then they hear Nora on the stolen walkie.
Tell Nora to get ready.
And they both kind of remember why they're there, which is a revenge quest, and that Nora probably knows where Abby is. They find out that she and the other wolves are heading to somewhere called Laurel Hill, and they go up to the roof and spot the building which is under attack from afar.
That's it. That's Lake Hill.
And Ellie gives Dina an out, since of course the pregnancy kind of changes things.
You don't have to go. You can stay here.
But Dina refuses, and so they plan to take on the wolves together.
Together.
And that's where the episode ends. And yeah, overall, I really liked this episode. Again, I don't think it's going to go down in people's memories as like a standout favorite episode that you go back to again and again, or that you tell your friends about and insist they have to watch the show for this episode, but it did a lot of things well. It's a very foundational episode in terms of building up the transition in Dina and Ellie's relationship from a friendship to a romance, and it also helps explain their dynamic up to this point.
I'm sorry it took so long. I knew how you felt about me.
And why neither of them have really acted on their feelings beyond that one kiss at New Year's.
No, I was hiding it really well. No.
And there was just so much range in this one episode. Like, we had the adorableness of the guitar scene, and then, of course, the intensity of the scene where Dina thought she was going to lose Ellie.
Do not fucking shoot me!
And then the sweetness afterwards where they finally express their feelings to each other. The acting from Isabella Merced in this episode is wonderful. And so is the acting from Bella Ramsey. I know people complain about them constantly in the role, but I will die on the hill that they're perfect as Ellie. Outside of the relationship with Dina and Ellie, though, this episode did have a really nice mix of quiet moments where we were kind of allowed to marinate in our feelings and get a sense of the world around us, while also having a lot of action and scenes that drive the story forward with more tension. I liked the background that we got on the WLF and on Isaac, and building up the conflict with the Seraphites a little bit more. And you definitely get the sense that it's an uneven conflict and that the wolves are better armed.
We have automatic weapons and hospitals, and you lunatics have bolt-action rifles.
But that the Seraphites do have an advantage in terms of ideology driving their soldiers.
Every day, one of your wolves comes to see the truth and takes them under their heart.
The wolves, and in particular Isaac, are absolutely terrifying. I am surprised I haven't seen more people excited about Jeffrey Wright playing Isaac in the show, since he also played him in the game. But he's got this amazing mix of menace and charisma that just works so well.
A copper's a bit of a pain in the ass. You have to polish it a lot, but it heats faster than anything.
Isaac is fascinating because while he's ruthless, on some level he's also principled.
Took away their right to vote, and somebody started calling them voters to mock them.
Which is why we saw him spare what he viewed as the most compassionate soldier in the vehicle.
The citizens, why do you call them voters?
When he blew up the FEDRA soldiers.
You, come with me. Learn something.
That said, his treatment of the Seraphites, and the way he's molded this formerly compassionate young soldier into a monster.
Scar got what he deserved. Fucking animal.
Shows us that his principles only extend so far, and that he's changed in the 11 years since we've met him. And there's a certain blatant hypocrisy in fighting FEDRA because they're an oppressive, occupying force that uses violence to strip people of their rights and control them, and then becoming an oppressive, occupying force that uses violence to strip people of their rights and control them. For example, even though the WLF is clearly better armed and more militarily capable than the Seraphites, their violence towards the Seraphites even extends to families that are simply trying to flee the war zone, as we saw in the previous episode. Given where creator Neil Druckmann is from, I do think this commentary is surprisingly nuanced. However, it is still very much limited by his perspective, and it could certainly go further, especially in terms of the portrayal of the Seraphites as somehow deserving of any violence from the WLF.
You kill our children.
You train them to shoot at us.
Because your wolves kill them.
Because you train them to shoot at us.
The zombie chase scene in the light rail was a lot of fun. Good amount of tension, good video game energy, and I like that it actually significantly drove the plot forward without just being an action set piece to give us a little bit of entertainment. But of course, the infected are just not the most dangerous thing in this world anymore. And that said, I'm scared for Nora. Because of Abby's friends, she was the most humane, and I do worry that Ellie is going to get to a point where she's going to do pretty much anything for revenge, and Abby's friends are going to be caught in the crosshairs. But outside of that, I had a lot of fun seeing their post-apocalypse version of Seattle. I think that even though it's very obvious they didn't shoot in Seattle, they did do a good job of capturing the general vibe in Vancouver and Nanaimo where they did shoot. And I'm glad they still endeavored to incorporate some recognizable Seattle landmarks like the Paramount. I think this was kind of another episode to give us a little bit more breathing room like episode 3 before things start to really pick up next episode. And that's why it gave us so much characterization here so that we have more stakes moving forward. Because now, of course, we have a lot more reason to worry about Dina. And we're getting a clearer picture of the stakes in terms of what Ellie's revenge quest could cost her. Later in the season, I am expecting that we're going to get a bunch of cute flashbacks with Ellie and Joel in the interim between when he rescued her from the Fireflies and when we checked in with them at the start of this season. And we're also going to see some flashbacks of Abby growing up with her dad. So what I'm wondering is if down the line we're going to get an episode that's like just flashbacks pretty much, and whether that's where we're also going to find out more about Eugene and what happened to him. So I'm excited to see how the rest of this season unfolds. I think there's a lot of fun directions it can go, and I'm really intrigued by all of the little factions in Seattle, and I'm excited to explore more of those as well. I think we're going to get a clearer picture of the leadership structure of the WLF and its internal happenings in the next episode or two, at least based on the previews. So I am excited for that, although so far they seem horrible. I mean, you know, props for fighting FEDRA, but in a lot of ways they seem like they are as bad or worse than FEDRA. But that's all I have for you for now. What did you think of this episode and the season so far? Were you a fan of Ellie's cover of Take On Me? Which Seattle faction are you rooting for? Let me know in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe for more videos. See you next time. Wiedersehen.